Do Americans low-key hate their democracy?
It was a stolen, disgusting election.
You know what? I'm speaking.
You don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Okay, maybe hate's a strong word, but they're certainly not happy with it.
There's too much money, it lasts too long, it never ends.
In 1984, the pollster Gallup asked Americans a simple question. Are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the way democracy is working in this country? And 3 decades ago, 61% of Americans said they were satisfied with this whole democracy business. Gallup have asked that question 8 times since then, and the most recent time, at the end of last year, satisfaction with democracy had more than halved. So, I've come to America to find out what's gone wrong. And I'm starting here, on Highway 411. This spot is about halfway between the 2 American extremes that exist today.
Kamala, you're fired! Get out! You're fired!
They are out of their minds.
Go about 2 hours that way and you're in the middle of Alabama's 4th district. A mostly rural seat in the north of the state, and as Republican heartland as it gets. 84% of this seat voted Republican at the last election. And about 2 hours that way is one of the safest Democratic seats, Georgia's 5th. A district that covers Atlanta's city centre and has a large black and African American population. And 2 years ago elected its Democratic representative with 82% of the vote.
We're such a foregone conclusion. We're losing. Why would you put the money here?
I don't know if things have always been this uncivil.
This spot is the perfect example of where America finds itself now. 2 parts of the country that are basically neighbours, yet in so many ways are polar opposites.
We didn't leave the Democrats, they left us.
This is democracy, and democracy is messy.
If you're standing in the middle, things feel pretty lonely. It feels like something's going wrong in American politics. This country seems to be tearing itself apart.
What the hell have you done to question our loyalty to the United States of America?
These guys are creepy and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
People on both sides say if their candidate doesn't win, it's the end of the nation as we know it.
I'm a very competitive person. I want to win, and we're going to win in 2024.
You know, we founded American democracy here, and Pennsylvania is going to save it.
This is part 1 in a series. We're setting off around this nation in a very large American car, asking what's driving Americans apart, and can anything bring them back together? We're asking America, are you okay?
President Trump, he'll make America great. Kamala Harris has never backed down from a challenge. She put cartel members...
American politics is always intense to some degree, but a lot of political strategists will tell you it's from about now that the campaign really kicks up a notch. There'll be more ads, more campaign events too, as the candidates sprint to the finish line. Take a look at this. This is the share of the vote that the winner got in every House of Reps district in 2022. This is the average. Most representatives won more than 64% of the vote. A handful won 100% of the vote because they ran unopposed. If you look at Australia's election results after preferences and put them on this chart, well, our safest seat would sit here. The US has about 79 seats that are more extreme than Australia's most extreme seat. That's nearly 20% of the chamber. And this is the district that we're going to first, one of the safest in the country. I'm in Cullman County, Alabama, where the official state vegetable is the sweet potato. And as luck would have it, there's a sweet tater festival on today. Good day.
Good day.
Good day.
Good day.
Faster.
Good day.
Are they so sweet?
They are sweet.
sweet potato.
Yeah, let's go to work. Hi, big
Can I ask you who you'd be voting for?
Trump.
Yeah? Why is that?
Trump. I just like his policies.
Have you seen how Democrats are nowadays?
Mate.
Do you know who you'd vote for?
Probably Trump.
Trump is for America. He's not for himself.
This country is going to be on a downward spiral if the Democrats win.
Can you say y'all?
Y'all? Nah? Y'all? Y'all? It's pretty hard to find a Democrat in this part of the country. Last election, Joe Biden got less than 11% of the vote in Cullman County. It's one of the most politically lopsided counties in the country. No one thinks the Democrats would have a hope of flipping this district. Even saying publicly that you vote for the party can bring heat.
My family went out to eat not too long ago, and somebody was leaving and kind of talking with us and made the statement of, well, you're a Trump man, right? And I said no, and it just boggled their mind that somebody here would say, no, I'm not voting for Trump.
How do you think they look at you?
I would say probably not favorably. We've talked a lot today in this booth about civility and trying to have a civil conversation and treat people with respect, which really are those deep Southern values we were all raised with, and something has been lost. From our side, I know that we're not always as civil as we need to be, and I think from the other side as well, we start from a place of hostility, and that's not a great place to start from.
Lance Conn took over as local chair for the Democrats last year and is trying to rebuild a very small and disorganised party.
We just couldn't get a candidate for our congressional district. Our county is not running anybody. It's very difficult to find those people who are willing to put in the time and effort.
So when people vote in November, are there any Democrats on the ballot?
Kamala Harris. That's our biggest hope right now. I think when I go to the polls, that will probably be the only Democrat that I really get to vote for. So,
how do you feel about that?
That makes me really sad. It feels like my voice doesn't matter, my vote doesn't matter. I'm worried about my kids growing up here where one side gets to take their argument to the extreme.
Look, there's no doubt this is a safe Republican seat in a safe Republican state. It's no great insight to tell you Alabama, it'll be called for Donald Trump the moment that polls close here on November 5th.
In Alabama, we have seen a drop in voter participation in elections as elections have become less competitive.
We have more and more safe House districts where the chance that an incumbent will be voted out has just dropped and dropped and dropped.
There are 435 districts in the House of Representatives. The Cook Political Report rates them by their competitiveness. This election, they've ranked just 69 as being genuinely fought over. Only 24 are rated as genuine toss-ups. 24 out of 435. In super safe districts like this, your biggest electoral threat comes from your own side. Just ask Corey Harbison, who's been a Republican member of the State House, representing Cullman since 2014. In the last general election, he won 85% of the vote.
Our elections are more stressful in the primary because that's where our opposition really is.
Do you think it would be better if there were more competition in elections? Is that healthier?
You don't want to get somebody that's in office and they think they're invincible and nobody can beat them.
And even he thinks that polarization can be counterproductive.
But these hot button topics that everybody really talks about, they tend to never get solved, and that's either party. Because when you solve those problems, then what do you have to appeal to the voters to show up to rally them to vote for you?
Polarization isn't just making people angry. America now has a huge number of safe seats, and the two major parties are almost evenly divided in Congress. That's helping put the government into gridlock.
There are so many checks and balances that you need cooperation between the parties to achieve almost anything in government. The Senate can filibuster, the House can block legislation, The president can veto legislation. The Supreme Court can block legislation.
Last year, just 20 bills went through Congress and were signed into law. It's been the least productive session in decades.
Once you compromise with the other side and enact policy, then you've sort of given up something and you've got nothing to campaign on. And so it eliminates a lot of the incentives for compromise. And the US political system really works on compromise.
America's political divide shows up all over the place. Who you are, what you do, sends a signal to the world about your politics. There's very little middle ground, and it's something that America's founding fathers were worried about way back in 1787. From the very first words of the Constitution, we the people, the founding fathers put the will of American voters at the heart of their new nation. But they made no mention of political parties. In fact, they actively omitted them.
The founding fathers weren't really keen on political parties at all. They thought you could do politics without them.
Alexander Hamilton called political parties the most fatal disease. George Washington warned that parties would become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious and unprincipled men will subvert the power of the people.
He really wanted to create a common American identity and a unified nation, and he thought that parties worked against that.
It was naive. Parties naturally formed.
A lot of American history is something of a tale of unintended consequences.
One of the deepest splits in this country's history, a split over the issue of slavery, led it to a literal civil war.
Following the Civil War, you get the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, and the 13th abolishes slavery, the 14th gave equal citizenship rights, and the 15th guaranteed the vote for African American men.
After the Civil War, two parties went on to dominate the next 150 years of US politics. The president has been either a Democrat or a Republican since the 1860s, but the parties haven't always been this polarised. In the 1950s, the two-party system worked more like a four-party system.
You had liberals and conservatives in the Democratic Party and liberals and conservatives in the Republican Party.
Alabama Democrats for a long time, particularly North Alabama Democrats, in fact, were known as Blue Dog Democrats. They were conservative Democrats.
More ideological variation meant more cooperating across the aisle and more swinging voters. Since the 60s, the number of states voting the same way 5 elections in a row has dramatically risen, from almost none to about 3/4. The shift happened over time. One realignment happened in the 1960s. From deep division over the rights of African Americans, the civil rights movement sprung.
It was the Democratic Party that really defended slavery originally.
As more liberal Democrats started to prioritise civil rights issues, many conservative Democrats gradually began to leave.
Going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson, the Democratic Party was always seen as the party of workers and of the common man. And that identity lasted through Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal, the 1930s and 1940s, and all the way up through the 20th century.
But in 1980, there was a celebrity turned politician who appealed to a conservative America that thought the country was changing too fast. If that sounds familiar, this will sound even more so.
We will make America great again.
Make America great again.
Ronald Reagan for president. Let's make America great again.
As a champion of conservative values, Reagan cemented the Republican Party as the natural home for conservatives in America. At the same time, the rise of cable news and political media.
Good evening, I'm David Walker.
And I'm Lois Hart. Now here's the news.
Put more focus on national politics and national leaders, and less on local issues and local representatives.
Local Republicans pointed to national Democratic figures who seemed kind of alien up in the Northeast or out on the West Coast, it became harder and harder for them to argue that they are representative of Alabama values.
The divide between the country and the city opened up and solidified.
Urban areas have been increasingly blue, liberal, progressive. Rural areas have increasingly been red, Republican, conservative. And that has deeply reshaped politics in the United States.
By the 90s, party leaders were locking in to their positions. That's when Republican Speaker Newt Gingrich introduced his Contract with America and made all Republican candidates sign up to the national platform. He also asked his colleagues to describe Democrats using certain words. Language that feels entirely normal today. It helped shape how voters think of each other. Since at least 2016, both Republicans and Democrats are increasingly more likely to say that members of the other party are closed-minded, dishonest, immoral, unintelligent, and lazy.
We're definitely in a place where the world that I think I see and the world that people I disagree with think they see are not the same.
Polarisation is not new. It's long been a part of the American story. And as they say, there are two sides to every story. So, let's go see the other side. In Atlanta, Georgia, the Fulton County Democrats are having their big annual gala. A chance to dress to the nines.
I saw Jill Biden was wearing a dress that was made with this fabric.
It's about us coming together to celebrate the recognition of the huge, blue potential in Georgia.
Ahead of a sprint to the campaign finish.
We don't have an opportunity to rest at this point, especially with democracy on the ballot.
You can't imagine the Cullman Democrats having an event like this. This county is just as uncompetitive as the county in Alabama, but this one in the Democrats' favour. The big difference here, though, is that there is a competitive statewide race on the ballot, and it's the big one for President of the United States.
I'm going to live in this state for the rest of my life, so I will fight with everything I have in my body to make it better.
We have to fight for our values, fight for everything that we know, fight for this democracy.
Do you just get tired sometimes with all of the politics?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely, yeah. There's too much money, it lasts too long, it never ends.
So we have to be vigilant. I think it was Thomas Jefferson, while we were at the beginning of this country's existence, that said, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. And that's what it's all about, maintaining that vigilance that will allow us to pay the prices that are necessary for us to secure our liberties.
Events like the gala tonight are, yes, about money, but they're also designed to get the party's base excited. Remember, unlike Australia, voting's voluntary in the United States. So you need to make sure even your most ardent supporters actually turn up to vote, because a lot of them don't. In the last presidential election, just 62.8% of American adults voted, meaning more than a third stayed home. Chasing those voters is one reason campaigns have been getting more intense. Through the 20th century, about 20% of people reported being contacted by a major party in each election cycle. But when you reach around about the year 2000, as the internet rolls out, that number doubles to 40% of people over just a few elections. And a study in 2015 looked at who the parties were contacting and found that strategies had shifted, with a greater share of contacts going to strong partisans rather than independent swinging voters, concluding that pursuing reliable supporters appears to be increasingly desirable for political campaigns relative to the risky and uncertain prospects of targeting less reliable supporters. And that growing emphasis on base mobilisation in elections has likely contributed to intensifying partisan polarisation in America. Let's say that another way. Unlike Australia, where everyone votes and parties have to win over the middle to win an election, in the US, parties are talking more and more to people that already agree with them, winning elections by making sure more of their side turns up, And so voters hear from the other side less, allegiances solidify, and the canyon between inches even wider. Across town, Republicans are also sharing a meal in a slightly smaller room. John Bongo Salveson is flying the Republican flag in one of the bluest congressional districts in the country. John, how's the campaign going?
It's a little bit rough because I'm in a race that no one thinks that I can win. There hasn't been a Republican that's won this race in 87 years. Nobody's helping us. Nobody's coaching us. We're just going like out in the wind.
Bongo himself won an uncompetitive election. He faced no opponent in the Republican primary. He's tried to reach out to the black community, which he thinks the Democrats are ignoring.
The black Democrats have been very receptive to me, very nice to me, very cordial to me. I have a couple stories where they give me the finger, but most of them are really wonderful, and they're just thrilled that somebody's there. Because I'm running against a ghost. And then when I went undercover to see what was going on in the black community, they're really getting screwed.
What do you mean by that?
Lots of several. For years I've been going undercover. So I'll creep in all messy looking, and I'll creep in the court and just kind of watch what's going on. What are you doing? I'm just sitting here watching, And I talk, when I interview people, the lower down the totem pole you go, the more information you get.
It's not really a surprise the party isn't putting much money into the congressional race here. They've got other priorities.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Marcy McCarthy, and I'm the chairman of the Republican Party of DeKalb County, Georgia in the USA. You can't win the White House without Georgia. So Georgia is on everybody's mind. We're one of the key battleground states.
Next door to Fulton County, DeKalb is also one of the bluest counties in the state. You struggled to find candidates to run in this county before, is that right?
They felt outnumbered, and people didn't feel they had an opportunity to win.
The party is now running 11 candidates for the state legislature in likely unwinnable seats, but knows it's in with a real shot for the White House if Donald Trump wins in Georgia.
As the chairman of the Republican Party in DeKalb County, we have grown the organization. In fact, we've tripled the size of it. So we're really optimistic on this go-around in 2024 that we're going to vote DeKalb red, because people are tired with the status quo and they want to fight for their future, and the Republicans are going to do that.
We've been to two examples of extremely uncompetitive districts. A very, very red one in the country and a very, very blue one in the inner city. Two in a very long list of uncompetitive districts. What happens if Kamala Harris wins?
I think we're going to see a very scary time for the country.
What happens if Donald Trump wins this election? What's the consequence?
Honestly, I don't even want to talk about it because that's not even an option, right? But if he should win, our freedom is pretty much taken away.
It feels really naive to say this. It feels like something you'd read in a high school civics essay. But the research suggests it would help if Democrats and Republicans just talk to each other more.
I'm not sure it's a practical answer, but I think we could train voters and train societies to do a better job putting themselves in the shoes of the other party and try to think, how are they seeing the world? Why might they be acting in the way that they're acting?
It's difficult sometimes to not really want to come back with an argument or really kind of come back with maybe a jab at their argument, but we're trying to keep those conversations going in a helpful way.
Is it working?
Sometimes, maybe.
And I wonder if you see any way of the two sides of politics ever sort of seeing eye to eye.
Well, you have to ask a Democrat, because I don't think like a Democrat, and I'm a proud Republican.
It sounds like you're saying that political polarization is a problem, but it's the Democrats' problem to fix.
They're the ones that actually divide the line. They have discriminated against people. They have undermined our processes, and quite frankly, they have eradicated what we call democracy.
There's just no common ground, and We need it from our elected officials, but we have to do it as citizens ourselves.
So the current system benefits parties. It's set up by political parties to perpetuate political parties, and it's good for parties.
The current system isn't bringing people together. Most of the races are decided well before election day, and the parties are increasingly only talking to their most extreme supporters.
We know what 4 years of Donald Trump was like, and now we know what 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration is like. You decide.
From outside, it seems like all of that contributes to the anger and dissatisfaction that a lot of Americans are feeling about their own democracy. But to discuss all that, we're going to need more than one video.
We have seen this cycle of polarization and depolarization in the past. We don't fully understand it, so we might just be waiting here for something to happen in the world that will help depolarize the United States. It's undoubtedly a hard problem.
Next time, mistrusted, mistaken, or misled. Accusations of election stealing run rife.
Most corrupt election in the history of our country.
Georgia was an epicenter of that in 2020. Donald Trump and his party went to great lengths to try to overturn the results here.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes.
And when they couldn't, they claimed the election was
Stolen.
They're trying to rig an election.
It's a claim that many Americans believe to this day. And they're worried it'll happen again. But is that possible? Can you steal an election?
And it's not going to happen under our watch.
That's next time on America. Are you okay?